At 3:47 a.m., every magnetometer on Earth recorded the impossible. Before we begin, I need you to do something. Comment your city name below. NASA is tracking where these magnetic anomalies are being observed, and your location may be critical to understanding what's happening to our planet right now. My name is Michio Kaku, and what I'm about to share may change the way you see humanity's place in the universe. For the past 11 months, we've been watching 3I Atlas, an interstellar object that defied every model we had for cosmic behavior. It didn't follow the trajectory of a comet. It didn't respond to solar radiation pressure the way an asteroid should. And 3 weeks ago, as it crossed into the inner solar system, it began transmitting. But that's not why I'm speaking to you tonight. I'm speaking to you because 43 hours ago, Earth's magnetic field, the invisible shield that has protected life on this planet for 4 billion years, experienced a collapse event that should not be physically possible. The magnetosphere didn't weaken gradually as it does during geomagnetic storms. It didn't fluctuate in response to solar wind, as we've observed thousands of times. It contracted inward by 17% in the span of 11 minutes, and then, for exactly 92 seconds, sections of it vanished entirely. I was in the operations room at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center when it happened. The screen showed our satellites going dark, one by one, not from power failure, but from something far more disturbing. They were reporting data that contradicted the fundamental laws of electromagnetic physics. Charged particles from the solar wind were penetrating the magnetosphere at angles that suggested the field lines weren't bending around Earth anymore. They were bending towards something else, toward 3I Atlas. Let me be clear about what the magnetic field means for life on Earth. Without it, solar radiation would strip away our atmosphere within decades. Cosmic rays would bombard the surface, destroying DNA, making photosynthesis impossible, rendering the oceans sterile. Every living thing that has ever existed on this planet has depended on that invisible barrier between us and the violence of space. And now, for reasons we are only beginning to understand, that barrier is responding to an object that came from beyond our solar system. The room went silent when we saw the first visualization. One of the young researchers, a woman who had spent her entire career studying planetary magnetospheres, just stared at the screen and whispered, "It's being pulled." She wasn't wrong. The magnetic field lines, which should form a protective bubble around Earth, were elongating toward 3I Atlas, like iron filings drawn to a magnet. Except 3I Atlas isn't magnetic. At least not in any way our instruments can measure. I stopped speaking for nearly a minute when I saw the models, because what they showed wasn't a natural phenomenon, it was engineering. Somewhere in the data streams coming from our magnetospheric satellites, buried in the fluctuations and anomalies was a pattern. Not the kind of pattern you find in nature, fractal, chaotic, beautiful in its randomness. This was different. This was deliberate. A signal embedded in the collapse itself, written in the language of magnetic field topology, visible only when you analyze the three-dimensional structure of how the field was deforming. One of the physicists at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory noticed it first. She'd been running AI pattern recognition algorithms on the magnetosphere data, looking for any predictable behavior that might help us understand what was happening. The AI flagged something unusual, a recurring geometric structure in the way the field lines were bending. When she isolated it and ran it through our decryption protocols, we realized we weren't looking at a natural distortion. We were looking at information. A message encoded in the collapse of Earth's magnetic field. Now, I need you to understand something about alien communication that most people don't consider. We've spent decades listening for radio signals from extraterrestrial intelligence, assuming that any advanced civilization would use electromagnetic radiation to communicate across the cosmos. But what if a truly advanced species doesn't transmit messages through space at all? What if they write messages into space itself, into the fabric of magnetic fields, gravitational waves, the quantum structure of matter? That's what 3I Atlas is doing. It's not broadcasting, it's rewriting the magnetic environment of our solar system. And in doing so, it's creating a message that only a species capable of measuring magnetic fields could detect. It's a test, a way of determining whether we're sophisticated enough to even recognize that we're being spoken to. And the message itself? I wish I could tell you it was benign. The decryption took 6 hours. We brought in linguists, mathematicians, quantum physicists, even philosophers, anyone who might help us understand what we were seeing. The structure of the message was mathematical, but the content was something else entirely. It wasn't a greeting. It wasn't an invitation. It was a diagnostic. The best way I can describe it is this. Imagine you're a doctor examining a patient. You run tests, blood work, imaging, neural scans. You're not communicating with the patient. You're measuring them. You're determining their condition. That's what this message felt like. A diagnostic scan of Earth's technological civilization, written in real time as 3I Atlas analyzed our response to the magnetic field collapse. And here's what terrifies me. The message contained predictions, mathematical projections of how humanity would react to the event, how quickly our governments would respond, whether we would panic or remain calm, how our communication networks would handle the strain, and every single prediction was accurate to within a margin of error so small it suggested the object had modeled human behavior with near perfect precision. We are being studied, and whoever sent 3I Atlas already knows how this ends. I sat in that operations room and watched as the data continued to stream in, and I felt something I haven't felt since I was a child staring up at the stars. The overwhelming smallness of being human. We think of ourselves as intelligent. We've built cities, split the atom, sent probes to the edge of the solar system. But in that moment, seeing the mathematical elegance of that message, understanding that something out there could predict our every move before we made it, I realized we might be children, playing with toys we don't understand. The magnetic field began to stabilize after 18 hours. The collapse reversed itself, and within 48 hours, the magnetosphere had returned to its normal configuration. NASA issued a statement calling it an unusual geomagnetic event, and the media moved on to other stories. But those of us who saw the data know the truth. This wasn't a random cosmic event. It was a demonstration. 3I Atlas showed us that it could reach across millions of kilometers of space and manipulate the fundamental protective barrier that makes life on Earth possible. And then, just as deliberately, it stopped. It let go, as if to say, I could have continued, I could have stripped your atmosphere, I could have ended your civilization, but I didn't. I wanted you to know that I could. Now we face a question that has haunted me every day since. Why? Some of my colleagues believe 3I Atlas is part of a galactic monitoring system, a network of automated probes sent out by an ancient civilization to observe younger species as they develop. The magnetic field collapse in this view was a form of first contact, a way of announcing its presence to any species advanced enough to measure magnetic fields. Others think it's something darker, a warning perhaps, or a quarantine protocol, a way of marking Earth as a planet under observation, possibly under restriction. But I think it's something more subtle than either of those explanations. I think 3I Atlas is testing whether we're capable of understanding our place in the cosmic hierarchy. Consider what we've done as a species. We've sent radio signals into space proclaiming our existence. We've launched probes carrying maps showing the location of Earth. We've assumed with staggering arrogance that any alien intelligence would be benevolent, curious, eager to welcome us into some kind of galactic community. But we've never stopped to consider that the universe might not work that way, that intelligence might be common, but wisdom might be rare, that species like us, violent, short-sighted, barely able to cooperate within our own planet, might be exactly the kind of civilization that advanced extraterrestrial intelligence has learned to avoid. What if 3I Atlas is an automated system designed to identify emerging civilizations and assess whether they're ready for contact? And what if we failed the test? The magnetic field collapse could have been our opportunity to respond with scientific curiosity rather than fear, with global cooperation rather than national competition. We could have united as a species, pooled our resources, approached the event as a chance to learn from something vastly more advanced than ourselves. Instead, within hours, governments began classifying data. Military agencies restricted access to satellite feeds. Nations competed to be the first to understand the message, not to share knowledge, but to gain strategic advantage. We proved that we're still tribal, still territorial, still governed by the same primitive instincts that kept our ancestors alive in the wilderness, but that now threaten to be our undoing on the cosmic stage. And 3I Atlas recorded all of it. I've spent weeks analyzing the mathematical structure of the message, and there's something embedded in it that keeps me awake at night. A secondary pattern, deeper than the diagnostic scan, written in a form of information compression so advanced that our AI systems can barely parse it. It's a kind of cosmic shorthand, a way of encoding vast amounts of data into impossibly small spaces. And when we finally managed to extract a fragment of it, we found something unexpected. Coordinates, thousands of them, locations scattered across the galaxy, each one marked with a timestamp. At first, we thought they might be the positions of other probes like 3I Atlas, or perhaps the locations of habitable planets. But when we cross-referenced them with astronomical databases, we realized what we were looking at: dead civilizations. Planets that once harbored technological life but no longer do. Some of them we already knew about. Worlds where we detected traces of industrial pollution in their atmospheres. Chemical signatures that indicated the presence of complex technology, but no radio signals, no signs of ongoing activity. Civilizations that had risen and then vanished, leaving only chemical ghosts behind. But most of the coordinates pointed to places we'd never examined closely, systems we'd dismissed as unremarkable. And now 3I Atlas was telling us they had once been home to intelligent life. The timestamp suggested something even more disturbing. These civilizations didn't all die at random times. Many of them went silent within a relatively narrow window of cosmic history, as if something had swept through the galaxy, not destroying them outright, but evaluating them. And those that didn't pass some unknown threshold simply ceased to exist. I could feel the air vibrate as the transmission began to fade. 3I Atlas was moving away from the inner solar system, its trajectory taking it back out into the darkness between stars. But before the signal ended entirely, there was one final pulse, a last piece of data embedded in the magnetic field structure. It was a counter, a number, and next to it, a simple binary marker: incomplete. We are being graded, and we haven't passed yet. Now, some of you might be wondering why I'm sharing this publicly. Why risk panic? Why reveal information that governments have worked to suppress? The answer is simple: because silence is how civilizations die. Not from external threats, but from internal decay, from the refusal to confront difficult truths, from the comfort of ignorance. If 3I Atlas is truly monitoring us, then it's measuring not just our technology, but our wisdom, our ability to face cosmic realities without retreating into denial or tribalism. And if we respond to this moment by hiding, by fragmenting, by treating this as a national security issue rather than a species-level awakening, then we will have confirmed exactly what I fear that probe was designed to detect, that we're not ready, that we're still too young, too dangerous, too unconscious to be trusted with contact. I think about those dead civilizations in the database, and I wonder what their final days were like. Did they know they were being evaluated? Did they recognize the warning signs? Or did they, like us, dismiss the anomalies as natural events, bury the evidence, and continue on their path until it was too late to change course? There's a concept in evolutionary biology called a bottleneck event, a moment when a population becomes so small that only a few individuals survive to carry on the species. Earth has experienced several of these: volcanic eruptions, ice ages, asteroid impacts. Each time, life barely survived, but it did survive, and in surviving, it evolved, became more resilient, more complex. I think that's what we're experiencing now, but on a civilization scale. 3I Atlas represents a cosmic bottleneck, a filter that advanced intelligence uses to determine which emerging species are capable of transcending their violent origins and joining whatever community exists out there among the stars. And the collapse of our magnetic field wasn't an attack, it was a stress test. Can humanity recognize an existential challenge and respond with unity? Can we put aside our petty conflicts and see ourselves as one species sharing one planet in a universe that may not be as empty as we hoped? Can we evolve in time? The monitors flickered once, then everything changed, because buried in the final seconds of the transmission was something we almost missed. A frequency embedded within the magnetic field oscillations, so subtle that it only became visible when we analyzed the data at quantum scales. And when we decoded it, we found not a message, but a mirror. Our own transmissions reflected back at us. Every radio signal Earth has ever sent into space, every radar pulse, every broadcast, compressed and returned in a form that showed us exactly how we appear to the cosmos. And what we saw was not the noble, enlightened civilization we imagine ourselves to be. We saw a species broadcasting violence, our entertainment signals dominated by conflict and war, our news transmissions filled with division and hatred, our scientific communications intertwined with military applications. We saw ourselves as the galaxy sees us, a young, aggressive, unpredictable species that has barely learned to control its own destructive impulses, yet is already reaching out into space. Would you want to make contact with us? I sat there in the observation room, surrounded by some of the brightest minds on the planet, and we were forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. Maybe the great silence of the universe isn't because intelligence is rare. Maybe it's because wise civilizations have learned to be quiet, to observe, to wait, to see which emerging species can mature past their violent adolescence and which ones will destroy themselves before they become a threat to others. And maybe 3I Atlas is part of the system that enforces that silence, not through violence, but through observation. By identifying species that are too dangerous, too immature, and quietly ensuring they remain isolated until they either grow up or die out. The magnetic field collapse wasn't trying to kill us. It was asking us a question. Are you ready to be seen? And I think the honest answer, the answer written in every fragment of data 3I Atlas collected about our response, is no, not yet. But here's what gives me hope. The fact that we're having this conversation at all. The fact that you're watching this, thinking about these ideas, considering the possibility that we need to change. Because consciousness, real consciousness, begins with self-awareness, with the ability to see ourselves as others see us, and to choose deliberately to become something better. 3I Atlas may return. The magnetic field collapse may happen again, and next time it may not reverse itself. But we have something that object, for all its advanced technology and predictive algorithms, cannot possess. We have the capacity for moral choice. We can decide individually and collectively what kind of civilization we want to be, whether we want to be defined by our worst impulses or our highest aspirations. The universe isn't punishing us. It's waiting for us to grow up. I've spent my entire career studying the cosmos, trying to understand the fundamental laws that govern reality. But in these past few weeks, I've come to understand something that no equation can capture. The universe is not just a physical system. It's a community, a vast ancient community of conscious beings who have learned through eons of experience that intelligence alone is not enough. That without wisdom, without compassion, without the ability to see beyond the self, intelligence becomes just another form of violence. And we are being invited to join that community. But the invitation comes with a test that we're currently failing. 3I Atlas is gone now, its signal fading as it moves back into the darkness between stars. But it left something behind, a question embedded in our collective consciousness, a challenge written in the very collapse of our planet's protective field. And that question will remain with us, haunting us, until we find the courage to answer it honestly. Are we ready to be part of something larger than ourselves? Can we transcend the tribalism and violence that has defined us for millennia? Can we look up at the stars with humility instead of arrogance, with wisdom instead of hubris? I don't know the answer yet, but I know this. Every day we delay confronting these questions, every day we continue on our current path, we move closer to joining those dead civilizations in 3I Atlas's database. Civilizations that had their chance, that received their warning, and that chose not to change. We still have time, but time, as the collapse of our magnetic field demonstrated, is not infinite. And the universe is patient, but it will not wait forever for us to mature. Subscribe to this channel as we continue decoding the universe's final warnings, because what comes next will determine not just our future, but whether we have a future at all. The cosmic disclosure has begun. The question is whether we're brave enough to hear what it's telling us. What if the silence of the universe isn't a mystery to be solved, but a mirror to be understood? What if we're not alone, but simply not yet worthy of being found?